Your body is trying to heal itself right now, but something's in the way. Not a virus, not a toxin, a thought that you had 10 years ago that never got resolved. Today, I'm with Dr. Sue Morter, whose father literally coined the term bioenergetic medicine. And we're going deep into the invisible architecture that's running your health, your emotions, and your entire life. She's going to show you why living in your head is keeping your body stuck in survival mode, how to use your breath to open up a trap door in your brain that most people never access, and why the person that triggers you the most might be the greatest teacher. If you've been doing everything right and still feel like something's blocking you, this episode is going to show you exactly where to look. Welcome to the show, Dr. Sue. I am thrilled to have you on the show because you were in good company here with our Hydrate community. We love our past guests like Bruce Lipton and all of our doctors that are bioenergetic doctors. And that's what you are. You study bioenergetic medicine. And while we before we started recording, I just found out that your dad is the one that coined that term bioenergetic medicine. So I can't wait to learn from you. This is something you've been doing forever. Just to note, you just wrote a book, The Anatomy of Awakening, and today it hit #1 on USA Today. So congratulations.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Yes, in our nonfiction category of healing, it's #1 and #5 overall with all of the books that USA Today is, routing. So it was very, very fun today. It just came out a week ago, so it's really exciting to see that people are interested in, more than just a quick fix on whatever their ailment might be, but really to get an understanding of how they live, an enlivened and enlightened life that allows them to truly be in charge of their nervous system and their chemistry system, and not just in an attempt to avoid or prevent, but to really thrive and to live the way we're intended to be living. So that's very fun.
Amen to that. Let's get started with you. Since your dad's the one that coined this term, help us understand what is bioenergetic medicine.
Sure. So, bioenergetics, it's obviously what the word, you break down the word. Bio is body and energetics is the energy flow of vital force through the body. The ancient Eastern cultures have used these works with acupuncture for thousands of years, and what they're doing is routing with needle therapy the energy and allowing it to reestablish its natural flow through nadis and meridians, etc. But in modern terms, the terms of quantum science actually started hitting the professional journals in the late 60s and early 70s. And my father was researching at that time, what was it that made people heal, and why didn't they heal when they weren't healing? And it led him into the study of energy and the study of consciousness, that our thoughts and our beliefs affect how the energy flows through our body. And the energy flows through our body in a pattern that is either designed to be flowing in, or it is disrupted or interfered with in some way. And so what he found was that the number one way that the energy flow was disrupted, which then led to a nervous system disruption, was unresolved emotion,
Mhm.
an unresolved belief or a thought pattern that gets suppressed into the subconscious, that is still attempting to be resolved. And so it is constantly routing energy into that scenario that now cannot be used for healing or filtering or cleansing or digesting. And so he was doing this research in the 70s, and it certainly wasn't a popular conversation in terms of the outer world like it has become today. And I wish he was on the planet today to see the way that bioenergetics is celebrated, and so many people are leaning in and wanting to understand the biofield and the movement of that energy field and what this can mean.
Oh, wow. Okay, there's so many places I want to go with you because I'm so excited about this. But where you just said something really powerful, and you were talking about how these perceptions we have or these emotions that can get trapped in our body that we're maybe even unconsciously, there's so much energy getting sent to that perception or that story that that energy isn't being used in other places that it needs to be used, like healing the body, building new cells, cleansing the toxins. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because I'm really seeing, all of us are seeing an uptick in cancer, in autoimmune conditions, in disease in the body. And I personally feel like there's so much, even after COVID, like underlying stress that people have, fear, anxiety. It's like a ticking time bomb. Like there's just so much being
Mhm.
pushed down, right? Like the unknowns of what's next, rumors of wars, like natural disasters. They've always been there, but it seems like there's something just like the kettle wants to burst, right? And so
Mhm.
when those emotions are in the body and they're getting suppressed, what are your thoughts on that causing or an expression of disease in the
Mhm.
body?
Yeah. Great question. So, what happens is that energy has to go somewhere, and it's designed to be routed in a systematic way through the body. The energy comes in from above the head down through the entire body, straight into the earth, and grounds itself, and then it rises up from the earth and traverses through the body and comes out the crown of the head and cycles around in a toric field flow fashion. And that's the order it's supposed to flow in. And what happens when we shut ourselves down in certain ways is we interrupt the ability for that energy to follow that pattern, and it distorts it and stresses it and causes it to flow in ways that are accentuated in some areas of the body and a deficit in other areas of the body. So the areas where there's now an excess of energy become painful and inflamed and over irritated, overactive. And the areas where there is a deficit, we have a breakdown in cellular structure and a weakness inside the system in some other way. And the reasons that we interrupt that flow vary with various emotions that we suppress or different thought patterns that we have that are distorted or thwarted, like I'm not enough, or it's never going to work, or they never should have done that. And so we hold this grudge, or we have some sense of unresolvedness about something that transpired in our lives, 15 years ago. And as a byproduct of that, it alters how this energy flows through the body. And so the energy is designed to be in a evenly distributed pattern throughout the body. It actually can be traced with a pulsation in the body. Many Ayurvedic practices in the Eastern culture read the different pulses in the body and see if that systematic approach is expressing the way that it's designed to be expressing, or if something has gotten out of stressed or gotten out of alignment, overstressed, etc. So what we know is that this flow is designed to be equal and flourishing throughout the body, accentuated in different areas at different moments, but always able to return to, a harmonious flow. And so when we actually, I have an image. I can put something up here on the back wall. Let me see. Can you see this for those that are like watching? Can you
Yeah,
see two images behind me?
I can.
Okay, so here's how it's supposed to work. See, this energy comes down through the body, hits the earth, just what I just described, turns and rises up through the body, comes out the crown of the head, and cycles around and around and around. And this toric field is measurable. The whole thing that I'm describing is measurable, and we see a smaller one around the heart center, which is actually super concentrated. It's like 5,000 times more potent around the heart than it is around the whole body. And what science has shown us is that a moment of truly loving, for instance, self-love or loving other, the vibrational energetic of love passing through your system is more potent, 5,000 times more potent than the most positive thought that you could think. So the
Wow.
feeling of love in the body is 5,000 times more potent than just, believing in yourself and going for it. So
Yeah.
it's quite phenomenal when we start to think about the power of these energies to heal us and to shift our body. So let me just show you here real quickly what's happening in this other image. This energy is pouring down through the body, same as the other, hitting the earth, rising up. But you see these black areas, and actually, I don't know if you can hear me if I come back here. I normally have a mic differently, but if we shut down in this area because we've been hurt or decided that life isn't safe or that I can't trust myself or something along those lines, we start to shut down the aspects of our consciousness that are associated with particular areas of the body. And so what happens is this rising energy starts to take on a wobble, and it creates a distortion in the energy field around the body. And that distortion keeps getting reflected back to us. So actually, the person standing in here looking out through that distorted energy field sees a world that doesn't care, that never gives them an opportunity, that doesn't work for them no matter what they try. It's just a distortion in the field. So, and it keeps reverberating and recreating itself. But it all starts with, we got to clean this up so that it can operate the way that it's intended to be operating, so that the body can start to self-heal. Because under these conditions, the nervous system is constantly getting the message that all is not well. An area between the conscious and the subconscious that are supposed to be in constant communication with each other, the thalamus and the hypothalamus in the brain, are now disconnected. They're not talking. So we have an internal crisis, even though in our external world, perhaps we're on vacation. So the body doesn't know actually that all is well, because the last message it got was, there's a bear in the room, and it's still responding as if that's true. So all of this is bioenergetics, is how to work with the energies to get this trap door between the conscious and the subconscious to open again, and to allow for this system to recognize that I can start healing. I don't have to keep fighting a bear that was actually here 10 years ago. I could actually begin to pick up where I would leave off naturally after the bear, leaves. So I'll stop there and see where you want to go. I just unloaded a lot there, but I just kind of wanted to give you a big picture of sort of what we're talking about, what we're looking at in terms of energy flow through the body.
You explained that really well. Thank you for
Oh,
sharing that.
thank
I
you.
heard it in a different way than I've ever heard it before, and it's really beautiful. So you're referring to this field that we have in our body, like this morphogenetic field that is really, I like to look at it as like the blueprint of what our physical manifestation becomes. It's like before all of our new cells are being built, there's this information that
Mhm.
is signaling what these new cells will look like.
Yes.
And that's starting from the field, the signals. So these are things that most of us cannot see. So
Right.
how can someone get in touch with that and know, because you're showing this field that's out of balance,
Mhm.
but
How do we
most
know?
of us
Right.
can't look at, like, how do we know that, right? So most people discover they're sick when they have symptoms, or they go to the doctor and some of their pathology is showing that there's something off.
Mhm.
But true preventative medicine, we want to prevent from getting sick. So if the morphogenetic field, or this field around us, is what's dictating what we're going to become, how do we tap into discovering when it's out of balance, and how do we know how to get it back into balance?
Yeah, great. So, we do have an ability to sense it in ways that we've not equated with actually sensing the field. But we do. Everyone has worried themselves into a stomach ache before, or overthought about something into headaches, and has been in a state of tension in the body because of a state of tension in the consciousness. People have had these experiences. And so we get that there's some kind of connection there, but there are actually nuances that we could sense and feel much more easily if we were living in our bodies instead of just living in our heads. We live in
Mhm.
our When we live in our heads, we become less sensitive to being able to sense and perceive the subtle nuances that are showing up right here on this image as this energy is doing this, because when the energy moves around a blockage and tries to make its way into another area, if there's a blockage there, it hits that blockage and we experience that like a knot in our stomach or tightness in our chest or a lump in our throat. And so the tiny nuances are there that are showing us that, there's a ripple in the river here. There's something going on that I'm resisting. There's something going on that I feel it in my gut, or I feel it in my stomach, or I feel tension in my spine. So these signals, we just think, there's tension. Yeah, I'm super stressed. What am I going to do? I'm going to go get a massage. And we're not really addressing what's going on, because the body is just responding to what the mind is doing, consciously or subconsciously. So we're constantly feeding an environment. So as we know with epigenetics, these little antennas on the surface of the cell are picking up on their environment and then sending that message inside the cell and telling that cell if all is well or if we're under attack. And so then the cell either turns on the chemistries that it makes, or a different cell turns on the chemistries that it makes in accordance to what this message is that these little antennas are receiving. But what we don't realize is that the thing that contributes to that environment that generates the signals that those little antennas are picking up on are our conscious and our subconscious thoughts and patterns and beliefs, our disposition, our come from, who we believe ourselves to be. And so we're creating the environment that is eliciting a defense response in our body from the field 24/7. So we obviously have to begin to learn how to clean house on not only finding beliefs and ways of being and attitudes that are begrudging, or that are fear-based, or that are angry, but we also have to feed the system what it would better run on, like higher frequency energies that dissolve these kinds of patterns that are existing in the body. The higher the vibration, the more it can dissolve. The more refined or the more subtle the energy becomes, the more difference we can make. So qualities like love, which we mentioned earlier, they have a huge impact. Qualities of self-love, qualities of forgiveness and compassion, gratitude, sincerity, transparency, vulnerability. Believe it or not, vulnerability is a great healer. But people don't know how to use these emotional states to their advantage. And so they usually try to avoid them because, lots of situations you can think of in life where vulnerability and even transparency don't seem very safe.
Right.
But there is another way of looking at all of that that can really begin to put someone in charge of themselves.
So it sounds to me like you're saying our belief systems about the world around us and about ourselves play a huge role in dictating the chemical reactions that are happening in our body. So we think of it the opposite, like I'm having this chemical reaction and then this is the way, I'm going to be thinking, but it's the opposite. It's the way that we think is sending these signals to ourselves to do whatever they're going to do, whether it's something positive or as a positive outcome or a negative outcome.
100%. We think that our chemistry creates our disposition, and it's the opposite. Our disposition creates our chemistry. Everything begins with consciousness. Science is actually showing us today that our entire reality is based in consciousness. Quantum science is showing us that we find what we're looking for. Like, the whole idea about the introduction of quantum science into most conversations starts with the famous experiment of setting up the equipment and measuring these tiny photons to see if they operate as and behave like a wave or like a particle, because they wanted to know, is the foundation of our reality a stream of consciousness, or is it substance? Is there something here or not? And when they set up the equipment to measure if it was a wave, the photons behave as a wave. And when they set up the equipment to measure the exact same element, if it is to determine if it is a particle, it tests as a particle. And so what they realized was, oh my gosh, because we're expecting something, that's what it becomes.
Yeah.
And the implications there are scary when it comes to a species that is not very responsible about the things that we allow to run through our mind, the things that we allow to be true, even though we don't know. We fill in the blanks. We write worst case scenarios. We're doing all kinds of stuff that now science is telling us is actually creating the reality that we're afraid of. By imagining worst case scenarios and preparing ourselves for the worst, we create the tendency and the preponderance for that very thing to unfold. So it's like, whoa, time out. We need to become a little bit more careful about what we think and how we think and how we feel, how we allow ourselves to get carried away with anxiety and stress responses. And so knowing that is one thing, but doing something about it is something else. And that's what I teach people how to do, is how to get energy flowing through your system in such a way that you have a confident sense of self that allows you to feel comfortable no matter what happens next. And most people live in their heads. They don't live in their bodies. And so they're not grounded, and they're depending on their minds to do everything. And the mind isn't actually built for that. The mind is supposed to be stewarding a great wisdom that's rising up through us all the time. But if we don't use it for that, it might as well not be true. So consequently, people live in their heads trying to make all the decisions, weigh out the pros and the cons, and talk to 6 friends and figure out what to do. And all the while, it's crazily inappropriate, because if they would use their mind for what it was built to be used for, it would absolutely know what to do in an instant. It would have the sensations deep in the gut, deep in the core. We call it gut wisdom. We call it this inner knowing, this small, still voice on the inside. We call it all kinds of things, but what it is the true self. It's who we're supposed to be being, but we're not. We're out here in this dispersed personality that's trying to perform or protect or guard, and consequently, we live stressed out. So to speak to your uprise in Cancer and not being able to deal with the outer world and those aspects of your earlier question, the reason that we don't know what to do with ourselves and the reason we're getting so sick and not self-healing is that we're locked up in our heads trying to figure out how to live life. We're constantly learning about all the things that could go wrong. We're focused on avoiding the problems instead of flourishing as the creative, self-healing, self-regulating presence that we truly are on this planet. And because of that, we are, fit to be tied. We don't know what to do, what's coming next. And so we become trying to control our external environment rather than being in a celebratory state, knowing that, hey, come what may, I'll be able to handle it. Let's go have a good time in the meantime. We don't live that way because we're so freaked out, all because we're not living in our bodies. We're living in our heads.
One of my favorite things to do when I prep for the gym is to get my blood moving. And the way that I do that is by reducing inflammation and adding some nitric oxide to my blood. I love HydroShot. Not only does it taste delicious, but it has hydrogen gas infused into the can, as well as natural occurring nitric oxide from watermelon rind with green tea, and it's 0 calories.
So it sounds to me like you're saying we are approaching health and wellness backwards. We are approaching it with drugs, chemicals to help us feel good and change our state, when we get to do it from the opposite approach, where we discipline our mind to get to choose the things that we want to think about, meditate on, create in our minds. And that's what's going to change our physical state, how we feel, how our body's responding, instead of focusing on some chemical to make us feel better. And whether that's, people are numbing out with alcohol is a great example of something that's very well accepted. Have a glass of wine at night to change your state. Not saying anything, negative to people that are doing that, but if you want to change your state, the chemistry is not the best way to do it. Or starting with the chemistry, we're going to start with changing the state of our mind to change our chemistry, and then we get to change our chemistry more profoundly, because whatever chemical that we put into our body's going to process it, and then we're going to be back to the same state that we started at, and sometimes even worse.
Right.
So
Definitely. definitely.
what are some ways that people can change their state? Because it's easy to say, well, just change the way you think about that or
Mhm.
change your perspective. But when your mind gets ruminating on something and something feels very painful or very triggering, and you don't even know why it's triggering, it's just something that for you, it's a hot button and it's a trigger and it keeps coming up in your life. And the story that you have around it, maybe you're not even aware of what the story is. You just know that these situations make you really upset and you're
Yeah,
frustrated. Where do people start? How do they start to change their perspective?
yeah. Great question. Super practical. And that's exactly what we have to get into. People have to learn that there are other ways to find solutions rather than racking your brain for those solutions all the time. That there is a nuance that's trying to rise up in your system called wisdom that's trying to be on the rise all the time. But because we're so busy thinking, we move out of a vibrational frequency and a brainwave frequency that would allow the brain to even perceive the wisdom that's trying to rise. So if you think about it, like if I'm in an alpha state, wisdom can rise up through my body, rise up through my system in a perfected way, and I will receive that information and know what to do, know who I am, know what matters to me. But when we are in a beta or up in a gamma state because we're constantly worrying and constantly fretting, what happens is that brainwave becomes so intense, such a short distance between the peak and the valley and the peak and the valley. It's like da, 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 da. What happens is that wisdom is riding a totally different wave and it can't get through, and so what we have to do is stretch that out and create more of an alpha frequency, something that has more space in between the peaks and the valleys, and that frequency of wisdom can rise. So think about it like a ceiling fan, that spinning and spinning and spinning, and it's spinning so fast. And yet here is our true essential self, our wisdom self. It's operating on a totally different frequency, but it can't get through where this ceiling fan is just spinning and spinning and spinning. And so we have to slow down the ceiling fan so that it's in
Mhm,
tandem with this wisdom so that we can get through and
mhm,
it can rise up to our awareness what we're supposed to do. So slowing down your breath, interestingly enough, slows down your mind. When you slow your breath and you deepen your breath in your body, it is the perfect combination to begin to change this scenario that we're talking about. And so a slow, deep belly breath instead of short, rapid breaths in our chest is a surefire way that we're going to start to stretch out that bandwidth in the brainwave pattern and allow us to start perceiving something that's on the rise. So, we were talking just a second ago about these little antennas on the surface of the cell. What they're also perceiving is 11 billion bits of information that are bombarding us every millisecond. That's a lot. It's cosmic intelligence. It's bombarding us every millisecond, and it hits these little antennas. If we just stay in a neutral state, in a loving state, these messages hit these antennas and they generate neurotransmitters and hormones and all sorts of creation of chemicals that rise up through the body. And they rise to the heart, which also generates more neurotransmitters and different chemistries generate through the heart. And so then it rises up to the brain in our head. So we basically have these three brains, a brain in the gut, a brain in the heart, a brain in the head. And they're supposed to be all speaking the same language, but they can't because we overuse the one in our head and in ways that are actually not normal, not harmonious, not natural. We overuse, we overthink, we over strategize, we agitate, we overthink, we regret, we anticipate, we project, we do all kinds of things that are completely unnecessary. But what happens when we do them is that brainwave gets into such a state that it can't allow this natural rising of a greater wisdom, a greater truth to ever be known by us. So when
mm,
you slow your breath, you start to create space where this beautiful wave of truth is emerging through us all the while. And as we become in touch with that, we see these things happening, but we don't get impacted by them in such an immediate way. We can sit back and say, well, let's just take this in for a minute.
Yeah.
We're having a knee-jerk reaction and, saying or doing something that, throws our nervous system into fight or flight in a very big way. We don't have the wherewithal to do that until we do, and we
Yeah.
can build the wherewithal to have space between, our thoughts, the actions of the outer world and our reactions or our responses, as well as creating the space to become who we're truly intended to be. We're not here just to survive. We're here to thrive and to
Yes.
experience ourselves as creators in our life. And,
Amen.
the way we live doesn't let us do that.
Mm. What you're saying, I feel like so many people can relate to in a practical way. Where when I'm on my computer and I'm working, and then I've got a text message coming through, someone's knocking at the door, like, there's this anxiety inside. I've got all these things to do. But I don't feel that way when I go up in my garden in the morning and I'm barefoot and I hear the birds chirping and my feet are touching the ground and I go look at my bees and their little area in the garden, and then
Exactly. You're
I
into it.
I'm seeing the flowers, like everything slows down, and when I slow down, I notice I feel high. Like, oh, I feel so good right now. I feel so much love welling up in my body. I feel so much excitement, and but it's everything that you just said. It's
Mhm.
slowing down. And when
Mhm.
we start to slow down, we get in touch with our real self and our
Mhm.
physical body, and these good feelings can well up inside of us. But I usually feel the worst when everything's going so fast and
Yeah.
not in touch. I'm, like you said, more cerebral, up in my head. The breath is short, it's up in my chest. It's, these quick, short breaths. But when I slow down, I can get in touch. And I think that's where so much of us are missing that intelligence. We are our best doctors. Our body can tell us when something's off, when something's not right. But when we're going so fast, we often miss those signals of wisdom because we're so caught up, like you said, in our head that we
Mhm.
out of touch with our body. So you said slow down. But what are some other practical
Yeah.
ways that we can do that living in such a fast-paced society?
Right.
You're speaking to CEOs of big companies who've got their phone ringing nonstop, moms who have many children running back and forth, running
Mhm.
a business, taking care of kids, trying to stay fit, trying to get dinner on the table. How would we do that practically of just really slowing down?
Mhm. So, when we're in the garden and everything that you beautifully described about your morning and your feet in the soil or in the grass or what have you, there's a disposition that we can memorize in that moment, and we can be slow on the inside even if we have to be fast on the outside. It's a disposition. It's not about something that requires our environment to give us this sensation. Now, when you are in an environment that offers up that sensation, you memorize what that feels like in your cells. And then you decide, this is the disposition I'm going to have all day, no matter what goes on. And so then that puts you it takes your life off of you. It kind of like sets it over here where you can take a look at, I'm going to have a certain feeling going on in here, regardless of what's going on out here. And so that's the concept. And then what I'm teaching people how to do is to build the neurocircuitry for that to happen. And it
Mm,
starts by building the energetic circuitry that is this bioenergetic flow. We have to build circuitry for this to operate like this. Because when this wobbling, distorted version of you starts to operate like this, you are at free will choice to choose how you feel on the inside, regardless of what's going on in your external circumstances. And so, in other words, when something happens that you aren't thrilled about, something happens that maybe triggers you or upsets you, there is a reaction in your body that is happening in that moment that you could train yourself. And that's what I do is I teach people how to notice that when you got upset, what we usually do is we say, I got upset because you said that. I
Yeah.
got upset because you did that. I got upset because you didn't do what you said you were going to do. That kind of a thing. But there's a better question, because the question then becomes, why do you keep doing that? Because every time you do it, it upsets me. Why do you keep doing that? Or maybe we get a question that's like, why do I get so upset when that person,
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
we're asking the why, and there's a better question that we could ask. The better question is where?
Yeah.
Where in my body am I getting charged specifically in this moment?
Wow.
Because it's gonna take you here or here or here or here or here or here. It's gonna show you. If you ask a better question, the mind, body, breath triad will show you why you're getting upset by showing you where the energy is getting stuck. Because each one of these levels in these different colors that I'm showing here, these energy centers represent aspects of our consciousness. And so if I'm not awake in my deep wisdom, which is right here, or I'm not awake in my own rootedness, which is here, or if I'm not really enlivened in my personal power center, which is here, then I'm going to have something going on that's creating a distorting wobble in my system at that place. And so when I ask, where in my body could I build the circuits to better handle when you do this? Then now I'm using your stressful activity, or at least what I perceive as stressful. I'm going to use that to my advantage. I'm going to use the fact that I'm reacting to you as a guide sign, a guidepost to show me where in my body I'm disconnected. So you're going to say, where in my body could I build the circuits to better handle every time you do that? Your mind is going to drop straight into one of these places. It's absolutely actually going to show you, but you never asked the question. So it never has been able to show you before. Yeah, I've been studying this for 2 decades. And in those 20 years, I have seen so many people turn their lives around by beginning to do this instead of do this. Instead of ask, why do you do that? Ask, where in my body could I build the circuits to better handle people like you? And what happens is your mind goes to this area. And then I teach people how to take that area and learn to breathe this loving presence that we're talking about is 5,000 times more powerful than the most potent thought you could think. So let's just turn on the love in this area and start breathing in this area and anchoring ourselves in this channel so that we can move this to this. And we can start to eliminate and dissolve these blockages that have gotten established because of premature conclusions that we drew long ago in our lives that have been running our life ever since. Because when this wobbling system is wobbling, we never get up into the high brain centers. The energy is too weak. When this is operating the way it's supposed to, this energy rises through our system with real power. And that area between the thalamus and the hypothalamus, that trap door opens up. And the next thing you know, we're animating these high brain centers instead of getting locked into our primitive brain where we're stuck in fight or flight all the time. So we have to get this system operating in a way that allows this thalamic gate to open and the high brain centers to be turned on so that we can think like a sane person when that person's doing what they do that triggers us, instead of acting like a crazy person and
Yeah.
suppressing it. Because we don't want to act like a crazy person, we suppress the emotion and we're like, oh, I'm fine, and we just move on. But we're not fine, and
Yeah.
it's creating more and more of the same. So
Wow. What you
yeah,
said, I'm
that was
sure
a lot.
we
I
can
didn't
all
mean to just
relate.
blow you away with that, but
We can all relate to that, right? We
yeah,
can all relate, and especially like you were saying, like, oh, this is really throwing me off, but I can't act like I'm a crazy person, so I'm going to stuff it down in some little
yeah,
box of some place that I don't even know where I hid it. But
right,
energy can't be created or destroyed, just moved, and so there's this energy that's in this spot and just stagnant there, right? So,
yes,
um, I have a question because I really like how empowering you made that. What you said was just so empowering. Where
mm,
instead of
yeah,
asking why, we ask where. Where am
where,
I feeling this? Getting in touch and that somatic experience.
yeah,
And I can attest to that, that it is so powerful when you start to observe yourself instead of just
right,
being inside yourself, when you're just inside of this body where all these chemical reactions are taking place and you feel like it's taking over you and you have no control, or you have to pretend and put on the mask of control,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a lot going on inside. Instead of being in that, you can observe it and take yourself out of it and just get curious with yourself and compassionate with yourself and
Yeah.
start to ask that question that you said, where am I feeling this?
Yeah.
And really send love and breathe into it. And I love that. So I'm going to ask a question for
Mm-hmm.
myself, because this is a very personal experience. Like, I can do those things that you have spoken of, where I start to ask myself. I've gotten good at getting curious and
Yeah.
looking out. But where I get stuck is around the people I love the most. So I can do that, what we talked about, with most of the world. But when there's someone like, say, my daughter,
Yeah.
someone I love and adore so
Right.
much, then we get into the mirroring, the resonant frequencies, where you're in someone's energy space and they mean so much to you and they're in a downward spiral. I struggle staying grounded in my own space, because it's like I become her. I mirror her and I start to feel everything that she's feeling, even when I try to just be compassionate, look at it from the outside. So,
Mm-hmm.
what are some tips you would give on that, around like people and their partner, their husband, their wife, their girlfriend, boyfriend, their children? These are the people that we care about the most, and they're the
Yeah.
ones that we get the most triggered by.
Right. You bet. You bet. So we're woven in, we're attached, we're hooked
Yeah.
in. And so in those attachments, we're always going to have to work extra hard. However, when we do this, instead of just even if you're upset with your daughter or you're trying to get your daughter to understand something, she's upset with you, it doesn't matter. All of the while, you're trying to make it better. And there are two things that are going on. When we're trying to make something better, of course, we love them. We want the best for them. We care. We're throwing all of our energy onto them, and the energy isn't remaining in the body to
Mm.
be able to do this work that we're talking about doing to build these better circuits. And so we have to come back onto the self and still love them. Okay. And just to become aware. So everyone can do this practice where you imagine that your daughter or somebody who really packs a punch with you, like it just really gets you whenever something's not right. Imagine that they're standing in the doorway of the room that you're in right now. And that they just walk into that door. And imagine it's one of the difficult moments where there's a tough time happening. And so there they are, there they stand. Your energy rushes over there. So I want you to just look at them in that doorway over there and just call your energy back onto you. I mean, it sounds wild, but by just thinking that, the photons follow your focus. They
Mm.
do. They can't not. They follow thought.
Yeah.
So we bring this energy back onto self while we're listening to her talk, while we're saying what we need to say. We're also pulling that energy back onto the self. And what happens is our energy field becomes more robust, especially because it's a poignant moment. It's especially challenging to do it in that moment. So you practice in all the in-between moments. Like the next time you're sitting at the dinner table with other people, you just notice that when they start talking, your energy automatically goes there. It's just what we do until we learn how to not do that. And so you keep your energy on you and you remain open-hearted, you remain listening, you just have your energy back on self instead of other. And so it's a practice called subject, you stay on self, versus object on the other, and just move the energy back and forth. So watch what happens. You got them standing in the doorway. You can practice this later. You guys can practice it right now. Imagine someone standing in the doorway that pulls you into them, like there's a magnetism there. And so there's your energy over there. Now just notice how it feels in your body when your energy's over there. It doesn't feel so good. So then just pull it back in here, like breathe in your belly, allow your heart to be full and be in your body, noticing that you are consciously and intentionally in your body while they're still talking, and notice how that feels. It feels so good. And then just throw it all back over there again and notice you immediately feel drained, you feel exhausted, you feel afraid, You start searching for things to win the argument or to fix things or whatever the tendencies might be. So you pull it back onto self. So practice it in the in-between moments of life where the stakes aren't so high. But
Yeah.
you'll start to feel yourself doing that. And then you come back onto self and you ask, where I'm so upset. You feel it like I'm all up here. It's like I feel my heart pounding and my throat's clamping down, and I'm all, like my mind is racing to figure out what to say next to make this better, or to win, or to whatever it is that we try to do. And
Yeah.
so in that moment, instead of figuring it out, just for a split second, just say, where in my body? Where in my body? And if you forget in the moment, you can do it later, because you're going to be remembering what went down in the doorway. You're going to be remembering what happened in that argument when you're falling asleep that night. So you just ask, okay, where in my body could I build the circuits to handle that better next time? And your mind is going to land in your throat or your heart or your gut. It's going to go somewhere. And your mind's also going to be saying, I don't know how to do this. I can't feel energy. I don't know what she's talking about. But you'll also notice that you happen to be thinking about your throat for some reason at the same time that you're having that thought. And that's it. It's subtle and it's always, always there. It's never not
Mhm.
going to show up for you. So you give it a hug wherever it is that you find it, or you put your hand on it so that you don't lose track. And you start going inside that area with all your attention, with all of your love. You don't stay in your head and send it love. You go in and go down into
Okay.
that part of you and breathe lovingly. And you'll start to build some circuits. I mean, that's a tip of the iceberg way to start working with this, but it's something we can do in short order here and in this conversation that people can start doing. And I wrote the whole book, Anatomy of Awakening, to help people learn how to do this, because we're meant to be doing this. We're meant to
Yes.
be perfectly capable of finding peace and finding love in every dynamic that we are in our lives, and to find super efficiency and effectiveness. I'm so much busier than I was when I was running a clinic and other doctors and a staff and seeing patients all day long. I'm so much busier and I'm so much more relaxed all at the same time. I used to have to take a nap at lunch just to get so I could see my afternoon patients. And I am not that. I'm so far from that now, decades later, feeling younger and more vital than I did in my 20s and 30s. So, I know that it works. And I've had clients that are in their 90s that tell me they feel better than they've felt since they were 40 years old. 50
Wow.
years have gone by and they feel better because now this energy is being freed up to flow robustly through your
Yes.
system, so that the trapdoor opens between the thalamus and the hypothalamus, and we get to actually live above and beyond the primitive brain, which is something most people have not experienced in their life.
All right, you guys, if you haven't already gotten the Hydrate book, let me tell you why this book is so special. First of all, it took me about 4 years to complete this book, but I made it so that you could put it on your coffee table, give it as a gift to the person that has everything, and it pretty much fits into every decor. I go through my 9 pillars of health and I really make science fun and playful. So you can open it to any page, get inspiration, and learn some deep science in a fun and playful way. I highly suggest this as a gift to the person that has everything.
So what you're saying, I can relate to so well. I have some experiential reality of a very stressful moment. All of us know that when you get into an ice plunge, your body's stress responses start, right?
Yeah.
So I have this ice plunge and I would go in it every day and it was just like, oh my gosh, this is so painful. And what I started to do was do the Wim Hof breath work inside of it. And I would get literal body highs inside of the plunge.
Yeah.
So I trained myself right when I would step in, I would take a deep breath. And that first breath, all of these amazing like chemicals flooded my body, and I would get this body high in spite of a stressful moment. I was feeling high as a kite and so excited and like
Right.
even getting in there, but it was teaching my body how to do that. And it's like over time, it started to remember, oh, I can feel really good. And I think it's something like like runners, they call it runner's high. Like people,
Yeah.
even though running is difficult, I used to run in college, I ran cross country. It's difficult. And every time that gun would go off to, for the race to start, I would say, that's it. I'm not going to, this is my last race. I'm not going to do it because I know the torture I'm going to go through. Right.
Right.
But then afterwards, you're so high. You're like, oh my God, I would never not do that.
Yeah. I can't not do this. Right.
Yeah. So, like, you're talking about getting out of our head and really memorizing that body experience and getting in touch with our body can be so powerful to overcome those stressful moments. So thank you for that information, because with my daughter, I get to learn that too. Like,
Hmm.
she may be going through a stressful moment right now and I want to fix it, but it always turns out and it's always
Right.
divine the way it's going. And so
Mm.
learning to teach myself to pull myself back into myself and tap into that grounded energy, because then when I'm in myself and I'm grounded, I will be more grounded for her, because otherwise we start
Absolutely.
spiraling together where
Right.
she's stressed out and then I'm like, oh my God, I'm feeling stressed out because you're stressed out and I'm stressed out. So now
Yes.
I
Enmeshed.
go to,
Enmeshed.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then I'm like,
Mm.
I need to take a minute and go lay down for a second.
But you
But
can see how she would know the greatest gift you could give her is what it looks like in a stressful time to stay empowered and to stay in your own body and to be present and to be capable of approaching things in a non-emotional way that's just, not overriding your possibilities, right? That's the best gift you could give her is that,
oh,
I saw my mom in a stressful moment just be good, be okay. I don't know how she did it, but she'd breathe in her belly and she was anchoring herself in her body, which we haven't been able to talk about today, but it's such a powerful tool to, just to witness. And you will be shocked that you're not getting as reactive. There's this other thing. I know we probably limited on time, but let me just show you this real quickly, that there are certain anchor points along the body that make it easier for us to get in our bodies and not just keep rushing back up into our head. One is this at the tip of the spine. It's like a Kegel exercise. It's basically squeezing the muscles in the perineal floor. So, gentlemen, if you don't know what a Kegel exercise now you can. It's if you're going to the bathroom and you had to stop the stream instantly, you would squeeze the muscles of the pelvic floor, the perineal muscles. You squeeze them. And when you give them a little squeeze, it automatically rushes energy down into the body and starts to distribute it more accurately than if it's all up in our head because we're overthinking. And you watch if you just squeeze those muscles with everything you've got and then you release them by one half, now you're that's the sort of how to start to practice with this. If you're upset and you squeeze those muscles and you start breathing up and down this central channel right here, you will not be able to get a good upset going. You just won't be able to stay upset. It just doesn't work because you're anchoring down in the deep core wisdom of your body. Another thing you can do at the same time is squeeze your shoulder blades together and drop them down your spine. Just rolling your shoulders up and back and down. Pull your blades together, drop them down your spine. It opens up this spaciousness right here in the core of your body, right in there. And it starts to allow you to feel and to be nurturing and present for yourself. So you squeeze this and you squeeze these, you're halfway there. Then you can just roll your eyes up, roll them up, roll them down, roll them up, roll them down, roll them up again, and then look straight ahead. You can kind of feel something behind your eyes because of all that muscle activity that was just happening. So if you were to draw a line from behind your eyes, right down through to where the blades are, right down to that mula bandha at the base of the spine, that's what that's called, there's a line connecting them. And now take a breath from overhead and breathe right in behind your eyes. Breathe right in through your throat, center of the brain and your throat to squeeze the blades and inhale into your belly. And now squeeze those muscles in the pelvic floor and exhale right down into the earth. Just drop the breath right into the earth. Now take a breath from the earth right up through this pelvic floor. Squeeze those muscles just a little. Breathe right into the belly. And exhale right up through your heart, through your throat, through the center of the brain, and out the top of your head. And then inhale from overhead again, same thing again. Inhale through the center of the brain, down through your throat, down through your heart, all the way past your heart into your belly. and exhale right down through the pelvic floor into the earth. And then inhale up from the earth into the belly again, and exhale from the belly. Pull the belly back to the spine and exhale up through your heart, through your throat, through the center of the brain, and out the top of your head. And then last one, inhale from overhead, behind your eyes, through the soft palate, through your throat, through the chest, past the heart, into the belly. Squeeze the blades, squeeze that mula bandha at the pelvic floor, and exhale right down into the earth. Now, by now, you should start to feel relaxed. Breathe up from the earth into the belly, and just exhale. So that takes about, a minute and a half to do. Everybody has a minute and a half.
Yeah.
But what will happen is you'll start to slow down the mind, and you'll
Mm.
start to anchor in the body, and you start to tap into these vibrational energies that we were talking about that house all these states of sane consciousness, balanced and harmonious. Your your knowing that this life belongs to you, your deep core internal wisdom, your identity as personally empowered and completely full and whole, and your ability to love anytime and to forgive and to release, and your ability to speak your truth, and your ability to perceive yourself as a quantum self instead of just this five sensory human being that's all subject to your story, and instead realize that you're here to evolve through your story. You're supposed to use your story to your advantage. It's not supposed to take you out of the game. Your
Mm.
history, your life, your lineage, your ancestral inheritance, all that kind of stuff that people get concerned about. It's like, it's not bigger than you. You're
Yeah.
bigger than that. And so, so that's just a start. I know I'm rambling a lot into the mix,
That
but
was amazing.
something will land for someone, and it'll help somebody today, and that's what we're here for.
Thank you for the practical application. That was really beautiful.
My
I love how you mentioned the story because we all have a story and none of our stories are perfect, not one single person.
Right.
Also, it's the meaning we attach to our story that is what can be the defining thing that can overcome us or empower us.
Mhm.
And I think that's something that's really, really powerful, that maybe if we just take a step back and, like you mentioned earlier, slow down and really get in touch with the meaning we're placing on things, on our
Mm.
story. Um, and even back to the example of my daughter, like if she's spiraling out, getting stressed out about school or tests or, whatever's going on, what's the meaning that I'm attaching to it? That I have to fix it, that I'm not, doing a great job as a mom, or whatever the meaning is probably what's taking me out of the being grounded as well.
Mhm.
So maybe would you suggest in that moment, like when you're talking about having her in the doorway and bringing the energy back to myself, could that energy that I'm bringing back to myself be the thought of what's the meaning I'm attaching to this?
Absolutely. We tend to, first of all, I think that our stories are perfect. I think they're perfectly
Mhm.
delivering what we need to learn to build the circuitry that we came here to build. So they're
Yeah.
perfectly, everything's right on time.
Ah,
So it's,
good reframe.
and just by reframing that, we start to reframe that it doesn't need to be fixed.
Yeah.
If there's nothing wrong, then it doesn't need to be fixed. But it is providing something that I could learn from. And so when I ask, where in my body could I build the circuits to better handle this situation, wherever my mind lands, it's actually teaching me what this situation is trying to teach me. It shows me what it is, because the area of the body that it takes me is related to an aspect of my wholeness, a part of my consciousness, a specific part of my consciousness. And so one of the things that I did in the book was give a chart to tell you, if it took you here, it means this. If it took you here, it means this. If it took you here, it means this. And so that's what the situation is trying to teach you, because if you were already awake in that area, the situation wouldn't bother you. It would happen.
Mhm.
You could handle it. It wouldn't bother you. So especially with family and deep, deep, close relationships, we are drawn to those people, or we birth those people, or we marry those people, or we're born of those people because there's a vibrational match to what we come here to
Yeah.
evolve into. So
Yeah.
it's perfect. It's, of course, it's magnetic, and there's such a potent thing because they're the ones that are going to stimulate this stuff the most because
Right.
they matter the most. So you've invested in them more,
Yeah.
right? So they're the best teachers. They're the best
Mhm.
teachers. So we just have to frame it up so that, okay, this is teaching me. And we can't use our mind to figure out what it's trying to teach us, because if the mind knew, it would have figured it out already. But if you
Yeah.
use the mind and the body and the breath together, now, now you can get the answer, because the
Mhm.
body represents the subconscious and the mind doesn't know what it doesn't know. But if you use the mind with the body will reveal what the mind doesn't know. So together they are more. Mind, body, breath connected is so much more. But the problem with humanity is they're living emphasizing the mind and negating the other two. The only time they pay attention to their body is when something breaks down, right?
Right.
And then they have to go fix it.
Right.
But it wouldn't break down if we were managing this, because this person is healthy and vital, and their hormonal system is balanced, and their immune system is balanced, and their digestive system works, and their nervous system isn't
Mhm.
isn't dysregulated. It's functioning because the energy built the nervous system. This energy system built every other system of your body. It built it. It knows how to regulate it. It knows what's going on. So if we get the energy functioning right, the other systems line up. They can't not, because everything is energy. The entirety of creation is energy. The chair that you're sitting in is energy. It's just packed into physical matter. But we know as a law of physics that all physical matter is compressed energy. So if you decompress it, it's just part of that field. So are our bodies. They're compressed energy. So we want to just open it up a little bit, decompress it just enough that we can start to feel and work with this energy that we are, and get to know a part of ourselves that have been left out of the equation for the whole of our lifetimes, and our parents' lifetimes, and our parents' lifetimes. If you go back far enough, the ancient indigenous peoples knew versions of this. Ancient Egypt knew versions of this. Ancient India knew versions of this. And I talk about it all in the book, and I bring it forward as references to parts of the brain and parts of the nervous system, and all of how we are truly equipped to be masterful in this life. But it's been lost for so long. We're just trying to navigate the news, right? And navigate the current events of the day. And there's a better way to navigate them. And it's to get in here and turn this system into one that's working right, so that we can, look at things and say, I know that's not true. I'm not going to get all up in a, an entanglement over that. I know that's not what's really going on. I'm good. And I'm not having to be, controlling about my environment, because I have a very big sense of well-being inside. And that's what humanity needs to establish inside of themselves. And we heal as a byproduct of that.
Everything you just said really brought this whole conversation full circle back into perspective of how you had talked about in the beginning slowing down. And when you're talking about these particles, how, this couch I'm sitting on, or my body, it's that density, it's the particles, like moving so fast, there's density there. And when we slow things down, we can open up that space for miracles to happen, for new creation to take place, for transformation to alchemize. And I love the way that you stated that, because it made me really think of it differently, where anyone listening to this who's dealing with disease, cancer, you're talking about this information it's information for the body to really be able to breathe into, to slow down, to open up the space for that healing to take place.
Yeah.
And when we're so caught in our mind of why is this happening, or what's going on, or how do I fix it, that's just making everything move, those particles faster and more dense, and less space for new creation.
Exactly. Couldn't have said
Wow.
it better.
So it's just so beautiful the way that you brought all of that
Mm.
back together. such an amazing human. I feel so honored to have had the opportunity to sit with you today and connect. And I'm feeling so grateful for our Hydrate community that they got to experience your wisdom today as well. I know you, I'm going to go and get your book, The Anatomy of Awakening. Super excited to be a part of reading that and getting to know.
Mm.
Is that also going to be on Audible? Is that something?
Yes, it's on Audible, and I read it myself, so
Mhm.
every word is selected because I'm creating the proper environment for epigenetics to actually happen while we're learning about
Wow.
it. So the pace of the read and the words that I selected inside of all of it play a role because we can't just be mechanistic about this. We have to allow beauty and life force and appreciation of a more really divine version of ourselves and of life to play a role in our animation, our activation of the healer within. It has to be coaxed out. It can't be, beaten over the head until healing starts to happen. Like it has to be nurtured. And so the book is written while it's science and spirituality, it's written in a woven way that will allow people to really have a wise understanding of the mechanics, because people like to know how things work, and so do I. And I also want people to know how to work it, in a way that works, how to actually utilize the information in a way that's going to leave them transformed rather than just educated. Because
Mm,
there's a difference.
thank you for that. I'm excited to listen to it then.
My pleasure. Yeah.
Now understanding there was so much intention behind your tone and your voice and every word. And I know you mentioned before we close that you have a course coming out that's an online immersion course. So I think that's going to be launching right before this show lands or right after. So
Yeah.
I'll put the links to that in the show notes for anybody who wants to learn more about
Yeah.
Dr.
Beautiful.
Morter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. It's called Heal Yourself, Heal Your Life, and it's all about the biofield and how to master it and how to turn it on to really change how we perceive ourselves to be in the world and to allow for healing as a byproduct of that. So I look forward to it. I do it once a year, and I'm thrilled about it coming up soon.
And how long is the course? How long does it
It's 3 full days with
Okay.
me, just live, and I answer questions, and it's interactive, and we have thousands of people from around the world coming together, and the juice and the energy that's associated with all of that is just creates such a healing environment. So we're gonna do healing practices all weekend long. As we're learning about this stuff, we're gonna do it, and it truly is just an amazing immersion for 3 days. So, yeah.
Okay, so May 1st, 2nd, and 3rd?
Yes,
Okay,
yes. Yeah.
perfect. All right, Dr. Sue, thank you for making time today. And
Hey,
I look
yeah.
forward to connecting with you again soon.
Been a delight. Thank you, Tracy. Much, much love.